I used to believe the coldest thing in my life was a winter night in Spokane. I was wrong. The coldest thing is being thrown out of your own home on Christmas by the man who raised you. My name is Riley Monroe, and the moment everything shattered happened at a dining table dressed to look perfect. Crystal glasses, gold-rimmed plates, fake laughter drifting under soft music, while strangers admired our house like it was a museum. We looked like a family worth envying. Then my grandfather's hand shook. Arthur's fingers lost their grip on a slice of turkey, and it slid onto the white tablecloth. The sound was small, barely anything. But my father reacted like a bomb had gone off. His chair scraped backward so hard the music died mid-note. "That's enough," he snapped. "If you can't keep that useless old man under control, get out, both of you." I didn't even have time to stand. He grabbed my arm, shoved Grandpa's wheelchair toward the door, and pushed us straight into the night. Snow hit my face before the door slammed shut behind us. I didn't feel the cold at first. Shock is warmer than any coat. Snow gathered in Arthur's lap, soaking the thin blanket around his legs. His breathing went shallow, quick, the sound he made when he was terrified but refusing to admit it. "Riley," he whispered, forcing calm into his voice. "Are you okay?" I nodded. I lied. Behind us, laughter continued through frosted windows. Someone asked what was happening. My father answered without hesitation. "Nothing," he said, "just taking the trash out." Trash, that was us. I pounded on the door until my knuckles burned. No one opened it. Inside, glasses clinked. Christmas carried on. I knelt beside Grandpa and gripped his frozen hands. "Come on," I said. "I'll take you home." "I'm sorry," he murmured, shame heavier than the snow piling on his legs. "You shouldn't have seen this." But I had, and something inside me cracked and settled into stone. That night, as I pushed his wheelchair down the icy driveway, one thought buried itself deep in my chest. This wasn't my family anymore. I had no idea losing them was only the beginning, and that the man shivering beside me was hiding a truth worth billions. And it was about to change everything. By the time we reached my apartment, my hands were numb and my jaw wouldn't stop shaking. The building on East Boone looked like it always did. Brick cracked with age, one flickering hallway light buzzing like it might give up any second. Home, if you could call it that. The heater died the moment I turned it on. It coughed twice, wheezed like an old smoker, and fell silent. Perfect. I rushed to wheel Grandpa Arthur inside, rubbing his hands between mine, trying to force life back into his fingers. "Sit tight," I said, fighting panic. "I'll get water boiling." He nodded, attempting a smile that didn't quite land. "I've survived worse, kid." But his lips were already turning blue. My apartment felt smaller than ever. Peeling paint, a sagging couch I'd found on the curb, a kitchenette barely big enough to turn around in. It looked even sadder compared to the mansion we'd just been thrown out of. I caught Grandpa scanning the room, not judging, hurting. "I shouldn't be here," he said softly. "I'm a burden. You should put me in a home." "No." The word came out sharp, louder than I meant it to. I knelt in front of him, gripping his frail hands. "You're staying with me." His eyes glassed over. That night, I reheated leftovers from my diner shift. Half a roasted chicken and mashed potatoes I'd packed because something in my gut told me I'd need them. I fed him slowly, watching his hands tremble as he tried to hold the fork. "You're working too much," he murmured. "I'm fine," I said. Another lie. I worked mornings at the diner and stocked shelves at a grocery store until midnight. My legs ached constantly. My hands were cracked raw from hot water and cheap soap. Sleep came in thin, broken scraps. At 2 a.m., after washing the last dish, I collapsed onto the narrow cot beside his wheelchair. Arthur reached down, brushing hair from my face. "You shouldn't give up your life for me." "I'm not giving up anything," I whispered. "You're my only real family." A tear slid down his cheek. We lay there, two people sharing warmth in a room that barely had any, abandoned but holding on. I thought this was the bottom. I didn't know we were only standing at the edge of something much bigger. Sunday mornings were supposed to be quiet, rare, sacred. That morning, I was washing dishes when Grandpa Arthur cleared his throat. "Riley," he said, and there was something different in his voice. Steady, grounded. "Can you drive me somewhere today?" I froze. He hadn't asked to go anywhere since Christmas, not since the snow. "Where?" I asked. "You'll see." That alone should have warned me. I helped him into the passenger seat, tucked the blanket around his legs, folded the wheelchair into the trunk. When I turned the key, he pointed forward. "Left. Keep going." No address, no explanation. We drove past the diner where I smelled like grease by noon, past the grocery store where I stocked shelves until my hands shook, past the clinic where I argued with insurance clerks over his medication. Then the streets changed. The houses grew wider, lawns cleaner, cars quieter. The sidewalks looked like they'd never seen a crack in their lives. "Grandpa," I said carefully, "where are we going?" He didn't answer, just placed his hand over mine. "Trust me." 10 minutes later, we reached an iron gate. Tall, black, carved with patterns that didn't belong anywhere near my life. I slowed instinctively. "This is someone's estate," I whispered. Before I could finish, the gates opened. Two uniformed guards stepped forward and bowed. "Welcome home, sir." Home. My hands slipped on the steering wheel. They didn't look at me, they looked at him. We drove down a long, winding road lined with rose bushes, fountains spraying sunlight into rainbows, marble statues older than anything I'd ever touched. At the end stood a mansion so massive I thought it was a resort. I slammed the brakes. "Grandpa," I whispered, my voice breaking, "whose house is this?" He turned toward me, eyes warm and impossibly sad. "Ours." The front doors flew open. A woman in a black uniform rushed forward and dropped to her knees beside his wheelchair. "Welcome back, sir," she cried. "We've waited so many years." I stared at him like I was seeing a stranger wearing my grandfather's face. "Arthur," I whispered, "what is happening?" He squeezed my hand. "It's time," he said softly. "You learned the truth your father stole from both of us." And in that moment I knew. The life I thought I understood was about to be rewritten from the ground up. The inside of the mansion didn't feel real. Crystal chandeliers hung above us like frozen galaxies, scattering light across marble floors that stretched farther than my entire apartment building. The air smelled like polished wood and history, old money, old power, old secrets. Staff lined the hallway, dozens of them. Every head bowed as Grandpa's wheelchair rolled past. "Welcome home, sir. It's an honor to see you again. We've waited for you." Each word hit me harder than the last. "Why are they calling you that?" I whispered, my voice barely there. "Not yet," he said gently. "Come with me." He led me into an office so large it made my chest tighten. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked rolling hills and a lake I didn't even know existed in Washington. A mahogany desk sat in the center, so massive it could have been my entire bedroom. "Sit, Riley," he said. I did. For a long moment he just looked at me. Really looked at me. His eyes shimmered with regret. "I should have told you years ago," he began, "but your father made sure you never knew." My stomach dropped. 40 years ago, he said, I built a company from nothing. Real estate, timber, hotels. By the time your father turned 30, it was worth nearly $1 billion. My breath caught. I trusted him, made him CFO, gave him everything. He paused, fingers trembling. He stole from me, leaked deals, forged signatures, moved money into accounts I didn't know existed. My nails dug into the chair. And when I confronted him, Grandpa whispered, he told me the company would be better off once the old man finally died. My heart stuttered. That same year, he continued, voice steady but brittle, my car was forced off the road. I froze. That's why you're in the wheelchair, I said. He nodded. I survived, barely, and I learned. He opened a drawer and slid a thick folder across the desk. I rebuilt everything, he said, quietly, under different names, different companies. He met my eyes. I own 109 properties across the country. My ears rang. And Riley, he added softly, it's worth more than $2.3 billion. I couldn't speak. Then he slid a second folder toward me. My will. My name stared back at me from the top page. I covered my mouth as tears spilled free. Why me? I choked. He reached out and brushed my cheek. Because you loved me when I had nothing, he said. And that's why you deserve everything. And suddenly, the weight of the future crashed down on me. I sat there staring at my own name, printed in ink that looked heavier than paper should allow. Riley Monroe, I whispered, like saying it out loud might wake me up. Grandpa Arthur closed the folder gently, as if he were tucking a child into bed. There's more, he said. My stomach tightened. He opened a third file, thicker than the others, edges worn from being handled too many times. Inside were bank records, emails, signed contracts, audio transcripts, dates spanning decades. This, he said quietly, is everything your father did to destroy me. My chest burned as I flipped through the pages, forged signatures, hidden transfers, messages where my father laughed about bleeding the company dry. One line lodged itself in my brain like a splinter. The old man won't last much longer. I felt sick. He could have exposed me, Grandpa continued, could have taken everything back. But I had no proof back then, and when I finally gathered it, I waited. Why? I asked. He looked at me with something that hurt more than anger. Because I hoped he'd choose differently. Silence filled the office. I'm giving you the choice I never had, he said. You can turn him in, or you can walk away. Either way, the money is yours. The truth is yours. The weight of it pressed down on my ribs. My father's face flashed in my mind. Cold eyes, clenched jaw, the way he said trash like it meant nothing. He almost killed you, I said. Arthur nodded. And yet, he's still my son. I closed the folders slowly. That night, I barely slept. The mansion room felt too big, too quiet. Every sound echoed, my breathing, my heartbeat, the future pounding closer. By morning, the decision had already been made. I packed the folders into a leather briefcase. Grandpa watched me from his wheelchair, saying nothing. Before I left, he caught my wrist. His grip was weak but sure. Whatever happens, he said, remember this. Your worth was never in that man's approval. I nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat. Then I drove back to the house I no longer called home. And for the first time, I wasn't afraid of what waited behind that door. I was afraid of what I was about to end. The house looked smaller than I remembered. Same iron gates, same curved driveway, same polished windows reflecting a version of my childhood that never really existed. I parked, stepped out, and felt nothing. No fear, no nostalgia, just a hollow steadiness in my chest. I rang the doorbell. Footsteps approached. The door cracked open. My stepmother stared back at me, wrapped in silk and perfume, eyes narrowing like I was something she'd scraped off her shoe. "You!" she hissed. "What are you doing here?" I walked past her. "Excuse me?" she snapped, heels clicking after me. "You don't just walk in." "Where's my father?" I asked. Before she could answer, he appeared. Whiskey glass in hand, shirt unbuttoned, eyes red like sleep had finally given up on him. "Well," he said with a bitter laugh, "look who crawled back." I set the briefcase on the glass table between us. "I didn't crawl," I said. "I came to give you a chance." He scoffed. "A chance for what? You want money? Apologies?" I snapped the briefcase open. "I want the truth." The color drained from his face as papers slid across the table. "Selling company intel, forging signatures, draining accounts," I said evenly. 20 years of theft." He laughed too fast, too loud. "That old man filled your head with lies." "Then explain the bank transfers," I shot back. My stepmother gasped. I pulled out the USB drive. "Or the recordings, you saying you wished he'd die so you could take over." He lunged, ripping papers, scattering them across the floor. "It's fake," he roared. I didn't flinch, then I opened the second folder. "The will." His smile faltered. "What does that old cripple even have?" I slid the page toward him. The number stared back. 2,109 properties. His knees buckled. "He gave it to you," he whispered. "To me. But I'm his son." "You stopped being family when you tried to destroy him," I said. Fear crept into his eyes, real fear. "If you do this," he growled, stepping close, "I swear—" "You'll what?" I asked quietly. "Throw me into the snow again?" He froze. I zipped the briefcase shut. "This was your last chance." As I walked out, something shattered behind me. I didn't turn around. For the first time in my life, he was the one afraid. And I was done protecting monsters. I drove straight to the only person I trusted to finish what I started. Caleb Ross had been my best friend in high school. Now he was a federal prosecutor with lines of exhaustion carved into his face and a reputation for never blinking first. When he saw the briefcase in my hands, his expression changed instantly. "Riley," he said slowly, shutting his office door. "What's in there?" "Everything," I whispered. He opened it. 5 minutes passed in silence. 10 more with his jaw clenched so tight I thought it might crack. "Jesus," he muttered. "This isn't just fraud. This is corporate sabotage, wire fraud, tax crimes going back decades." He looked up at me. "Your father's going to prison." "I know." "If I file this," he warned, "there's no going back." I closed my eyes. Snow. A wheelchair. My father's voice saying trash. "Do it." 3 days later, the world cracked open. I was reading to Grandpa in the garden when the housekeeper rushed out holding a tablet, hands shaking. "Miss Riley, you need to see this." The headline screamed across the screen. "FBI Raid Carter. Industries Headquarters." Footage rolled. Agents storming glass offices. Employees frozen in shock. Boxes of files carried out like evidence from a crime scene, which they were. Then the camera cut. My father. Hands cuffed behind his back. Coat crooked. Face gray. Reporters shouting questions he couldn't answer. When he looked up, his eyes found the camera. Found me. For 1 second, rage twisted his face. Then fear swallowed it whole as he was shoved into the back of a cruiser. Sirens screamed. The door slammed. The empire he built on greed collapsed in real time. That night, Grandpa watched the news silently. When my father's mugshot appeared, he closed his eyes, not in triumph, but grief. "My son," he whispered. "He could have chosen family." I took his hand. "You didn't fail him," I said. "He failed you." He nodded, tears slipping free. For the first time, the truth was louder than the lies, and there was no undoing it now. The trial began 2 months later, when winter finally loosened its grip on the city. Every morning, I pushed Grandpa Arthur's wheelchair through the courthouse doors, past marble columns and security gates that hummed with tension. He insisted on being there for every session. "I need to hear the truth spoken out loud," he said. So did I. The first day, my father was brought in wearing an orange jumpsuit. The man who once wore tailored suits and silk ties looked smaller now. Hollow, like arrogance had finally drained out of him. He refused to look at me, refused to look at Grandpa. My stepmother sat on the opposite bench, pale and shaking, mascara already streaking by noon. The charges were read slowly, methodically: wire fraud, corporate fraud, forgery, tax evasion, intent to sabotage a parent's business. Each word landed like a hammer. Caleb stood tall for the prosecution, voice sharp and unforgiving. He played the recordings, displayed the emails, projected bank transfers across the screen for everyone to see. Then came the witnesses, former employees, accountants, partners, each one confirming what Grandpa had endured in silence. When the tape played, my father's voice sneering, "The old man needs to die already," I felt Grandpa's hand shake in mine. "I'm okay," he whispered. He wasn't. On the 4th day, my father finally turned toward us. For the first time in my life, his face cracked. Not with anger, not denial, but shame. The verdict came on the 7th day. Guilty on all counts. The sentence followed without mercy. 22 years in federal prison. My father swayed. My stepmother sobbed. As guards led him away, he turned back one last time, voice breaking into something unrecognizable. "Dad, I'm sorry." Grandpa closed his eyes. Tears slipped down his face, but he said nothing. The door clanged shut. It was over. And yet somehow, it felt like the beginning of another ending entirely. After the verdict, Grandpa Arthur declined fast. At first, it was just fatigue. He slept longer, laughed less. Then came the coughing fits that bent him forward in his wheelchair, fingers gripping the armrests like anchors. Doctors used careful voices and words that floated instead of landing. I moved my cot into his room. Every night he reached for my hand like he was afraid the dark might take me too. "You changed everything," he whispered one evening, his voice thin as breath on glass. "Don't let what he did turn you hard." "I won't," I promised. "I still have you." A sad smile touched his lips. "For now." The morning he died, sunlight filled the room quietly. No alarms, no panic, just stillness. I brought in oatmeal and tea, talking softly like always, until I realized he wasn't listening. Arthur lay peacefully, eyes closed, one hand stretched toward the empty space beside the bed where I slept. I took his hand and pressed it to my forehead, sobbing without sound. "Thank you," I whispered, "for choosing me." The funeral was small, no marble coffins, no cameras, just a pine casket, white flowers, and people he'd helped over decades, former employees, neighbors, strangers whose lives he'd quietly changed. They all said the same thing. "He saved me." 3 days later, the attorney read the will. When he spoke my name as sole heir, the room fell silent. I didn't feel rich. I felt responsible. That night, I stood alone in his empty room and whispered, "I won't let you down." The wind moved through the open window, maybe coincidence, maybe not. And for the first time since the snow, I didn't feel alone. Grief didn't arrive all at once. It came in waves. Some mornings it crushed me the moment I woke up, heavy as stone. Other nights it slipped in quietly, settling on my chest until breathing felt like work. The mansion felt too large without Grandpa Arthur, his wheelchair empty, his tea mug untouched, his laughter echoing in places my father had never filled. The world didn't slow down for mourning. Lawyers filled my days, boards and executives filled my nights. People looked at me with awe, doubt, and hunger all mixed together. A 28-year-old woman suddenly standing at the center of an empire worth billions. But Grandpa hadn't left me money alone. He'd left me a blueprint. The first thing I did was dismantle everything tied to my father's name. New logo, new structure, new mission. I rebuilt the company around one rule Arthur lived by: dignity first, scholarships for working families, ethical oversight baked into every deal, no shadows, no secrets. Some executives quit, others stayed. I didn't beg. Then, quietly, life surprised me. I met Evan Blake during a renovation meeting, an architect with calm eyes and a presence that didn't ask for anything. He looked at me one day and said, "You're exhausted." I laughed, for the first time in months. He never chased my title, never flinched at my past. He just stayed. Coffee turned into walks. Walks turned into something steady and real. The following spring, I held our son for the first time. I whispered, "You'll know who your great-grandfather was." On the anniversary of Grandpa's death, we launched the Arthur Monroe Honor Scholarship. Hundreds of students filled the hall, kids from broken homes, kids working 2 jobs, kids who knew the cold. I told them the truth. "I was thrown into the snow once," I said, "and I rebuilt everything from there." The applause wasn't polite. It was thunder. That night, I walked alone through the rose garden Grandpa loved. I touched the bench carved in his name. "I hope I made you proud," I whispered. The wind moved through the petals, and for the first time, I knew something with certainty. The cold never won.